Hello again, everyone. Happy New Year. Welcome to the Hardy Realty Show on Rome Business Radio. We broadcast from the Hardy Realty Studios, and we work in cooperation with the Rome News Tribune. I am Roger Manus with Rome Business Radio, and we are joined today. Our Hardy Realty representative is Lori Davidson. Hello, Lori. How are you?
I am doing well, thanks.
How'd you get roped into this?
Well, I was booked a while ago, but under a little bit of pressure. So I'll try to remain calm.
And our guest is Carrie Edge, the Executive Director of Elevation House. Hi, Carrie. How are you?
I'm great, Roger. Thank you for having me again.
So yeah, I was going to say, you've been on the show before.
And I'm a sub.
Yeah. Y'all both pinch hitting today?
Yeah, we are. Yes. Absolutely. We've been called up.
Yeah. So follow my sports analogies because I will use plenty of them inadvertently. But you also, Carrie, you have your own podcast because you are all about, you're leaning into that microphone. You're ready to go.
She looks like a professional.
Thank you. My husband makes me be a professional.
So before we talk about Elevation House and maybe let Lori sing the praises of Hardy Realty, I sing the praises of Hardy Realty because we use this show, their platform, to celebrate the good things going on in our community and people who do great work to serve the community, which is why, Carrie, you are here representing Elevation House. We're not here to buy and sell houses, which is great. Although Lori, we will let you mention your contact information later. So if people do want to buy or sell a house, they can reach
Shameless
out.
Plug.
That's great. Unexpected, Roger, but thank you.
Because if you want to buy or sell a house in this town, it's Hardy Realty. So, Carrie, just if you could, I know you've been on the show before, but for those who maybe haven't, Elevation House, give us the lay of the land. What's that about?
Well, the broad overview is our mission is to end economic and social isolation for adults that live with serious mental illness in Northwest Georgia. We are one of 2 clubhouse modeled programs in the state of Georgia and one of over 300 across the world. So our model has been used for nearly 75 years to literally transform the lives of individuals living with mental illness and help them pursue their dreams. Life after diagnosis sometimes can be very difficult, so we help them go back to work, build confidence, find homes and safe, dignified, affordable housing. So anything that it is that they need, we walk alongside of them and help them pursue that. Now,
when the phrase mental illness gets mentioned, there has been a stigma. Is there still one?
There is definitely still stigma.
Okay. And so how do you navigate that?
Like podcasts like these is just continuing to talk about it, to have our members share their stories and be very transparent about what they've experienced. The only way we can proceed forward in the future is to understand historically where we've been in the past. As a mother of he's a young adult now. I still call him a child. He's still my kid. He lives on this autism spectrum, but he also has been diagnosed with bipolar and generalized anxiety disorder. I understand what it's like to see him try to live out the life that he has. So not only do I work with people, I live with an individual who lives with a serious mental illness.
So is that how you got involved and connected?
I actually got involved and connected in my work. I'm a jack of all trades, a master of none. I was a sheriff deputy. I was a sergeant at the Floyd County Sheriff's Office, and I worked in our professional development and training division. And one of my assignments was to work with the National Alliance of Mental Illness to see how we might, as an organization, better facilitate the needs of our individuals who are incarcerated that live with mental illness. As in our country, it's become an epidemic that prisons and jails are the new institutions for those living with mental illness. And, it obviously touched my heart before. I actually started working there before my son's diagnoses, but my mom had been hospitalized for depression a couple of times. But I don't think I ever had a realization of the impact of mental health until I really started working in jails and seeing what it looks like when it's not properly treated. That's not the right place for people to be. And as a mom with a child who lives with a mental illness, just imagining him being in that place, plus having a developmental disability with autism, I can't even imagine what that would look like.
Okay, I've got like 100 questions here. I'll try.
I see them rolling around in your mind.
I'll try to figure out the proper order. Mental health. and mental illness. It's interesting. I'm a sports fan. So mental health has been mentioned a lot the last couple of years. It's kind of like Simone Biles at the Olympics, where she begged out of some competition because her mind wasn't in the right place. Is there a difference between mental health and mental illness? And when we say mental illness, this is another question coming at you. It's like an all-encompassing term because you mentioned depression, you mentioned bipolar, you mentioned autism. Mm-hmm. Is mental illness kind of this catch-all phrase? And is there a difference between mental illness and mental health? And so
wow.
I'm sorry to overwhelm you. I just gave you a lot there. So
there are a couple of terms that you kind of hear thrown around. There's mental wellness, and that's something that all of us have. There's mental illness when we have a diagnosis. And when I say serious mental illness, those are the adults that we serve. Those are diagnoses that impact someone's ability to experience some normalcy in everyday living. They need supports that include medical mental health, which is medications at times, counseling, support groups, and then in addition to that, daily supports for life, which Elevation House provides. We are like a recovery center, if you will. So you do hear those three kind of things kind of thrown around. We all have mental health. And we all have mental wellness. Even people who live with mental illness as a diagnosis both have mental wellness and mental health.
Okay. I think I understand.
Complicated.
Lori, we were chatting before the show. You and Carrie just met.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
But you have one thing in common, 5 children each.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that's a conversation all in itself.
Right. Hashtag supermoms.
Exactly.
But so the Hardy Realty Show, as we mentioned, on a monthly basis, when we do it, we invite guests in to celebrate the good, positive things going on in our community. And you mentioned you were kind of a sub, and Laura, you're kind of a sub as well.
Absolutely.
So, because your connection is with a different organization, right? So you really didn't know anything about Carrie and Elevation House. So
right. I had heard because Hardy Realty has helped a little bit, I think, just beginning. Yes. Roseanne Collins is one of my colleagues at Hardy Realty, and she's involved, I know, with your organization.
Yes.
So anyway, we love being involved in the community. We do a lot in the community, a lot of organizations. I think Jimmy Byers that's his thing, and spearheads a great amount, and I'm just glad to be a part of it.
And co-hosting the show this month.
Well, yes.
Go ahead, co-host.
So maybe
Supermom, hashtag co-host.
Right.
Yeah. The 5 kids thing. What possesses y'all to have 5 kids?
Well, I'm Catholic, so
I grew up Catholic.
Okay, so
there's another common thread.
That's what got it rolling. When you sit in church and you see all these women with all these kids, and I just thought I can do that. That looks.
In the book of Genesis, it
easy.
said for us to be fruitful and multiply, and I just took it seriously.
Right.
Now, to be honest, I never made a decision. That was it. Decide, people. Like, failing to plan is planning to fail. Even though none of my children are failing, I'm thoroughly blessed, and we've started over. Mine are old enough to have their own, so I'm also a grandmother of 2. So. Yeah. Look, Roger's looking at me like,
Well, the former deputy sheriff thing has always thrown me, but I remember that from your previous visit here.
Well, and I thought, that's great. She could win that cocktail party game of what the least known fact about me, because nobody would ever believe that you were a sheriff's deputy.
I know. I traded in my Glock for a pair of cute earrings.
Right. She looks like a supermodel, y'all. I'm just saying.
Well, thank you.
Yes. I would never believe it.
Well, I can't believe.
I can't believe we're having this conversation.
Well, I can't believe both of you have 5 kids looking at you. You don't look like. I don't have any children, but I am one of 5. But as we were chatting before the show, I'm the only boy, so I kind of got picked on
babied and bossed.
Yeah,
boss baby.
Listen, my girls like to say to me, "Mommy, would you do something with him? He's a brat," because our baby just turned 14, and so
my baby is 14.
You were probably called a brat, lots, Roger.
Probably.
No comment.
He maybe still is being called a brat.
We need to get his mom on here.
It's more bratty to the boyfriends of my older sisters. We're really digressing here, but like when they'd come over and I would for $1, I'll go away type
Oh.
thing. Oh, you want to hang
He was
out?
an entrepreneur.
you want to hang out with my sister by yourself in the den? Well, I'm going to be right here. Let you give me $1 and I'll go away.
Chaperone.
So we're really digressing.
Speaking of $1, I'm going to reel us in. I do want to take this moment to thank Hardy Realty. So Elevation House has been open for 3 years in June. So I'm just celebrating my 3 years. Actually, I believe today I've been with Elevation House for 3 years, and
Congratulations.
Thank you. Since our inception, the great people at Hardy Realty have invested as sponsors in all of our special events, and we really appreciate that. And in addition, just reaching out and say, what's the low hanging fruit? How can we meet a current need? And providing some things for our pantry and whatnot. It's extremely helpful. And we're just greatly appreciative, not only of the investment financially, but to me, what's bigger is for them to invest in the cause and the belief you put behind a mission when you do make a financial investment. And for Elevation House being this, it's a unique resource in the state of Georgia. It's not unique to every state. Some states have quite a few clubhouses, but it's kind of new to us. And many times it's hard for people to wrap their mind around, what do you mean when you say mental health recovery? Just like, Roger, when you ask, what's the difference between mental wellness and mental health and all of those sorts of things? So we're appreciative of organizations like Hardy who back our mission and say, we believe in what you do.
Well, Laura, you touched on Hardy's involvement, but just everybody in Rome, Floyd County knows of Hardy Realty because you guys are like everywhere with marketing and selling of houses. But if you could expand, please, a little bit on the thought of, yeah, sure, Jimmy's behind it, but is working for an organization that wants to do more in the community, and you guys are very involved. Could you just talk about working for an organization like that?
Yes, I can. And like I said, it's a huge blessing that I fell upon Hardy Realty several years ago. I think that the word that comes to mind is we're a family. So I think as families often operate or should operate, you serve first. And I think that most of us feel that way. If you're serving, then your good things will come to you. Good things will come to the company, and that's just kind of the order we like to keep things in. So it's wonderful. I mean, being a busy mom and a busy realtor, I'm not able to seek out opportunities to volunteer all the time. But when we have somebody at the office, Christina Stewart, that spearheads it, and she's a mother of one and an empty nester, and she's just got a heart of gold. So she took it over, and she gives us those opportunities to volunteer constantly. I think I have 2 things next week. I'll be at the community kitchen with a bunch of others, and then the YMCA does the food pantry that I'll be at that same afternoon. So we're just given lots of opportunities to get in the community and meet people. I've met people I never, ever would have come in contact with before.
So it is so important to Hardy and Jimmy, and so critical to your thinking and your corporate identity that it's internal. These things are discussed in house, and you're giving the opportunity. You have volunteer opportunities that are kind of brought up internally at the business.
Absolutely. That's
wow.
Exactly it.
That's a very unique thing. I want to touch on something you said, Carrie, earlier. Well, first of all, you talked about their sponsorship of special events. What are some of the special events that you guys do?
So our main special event, and this has kind of been the thing, your first year, you just kind of get your feet wet, trying to figure out what you're going to do. But for the last 2 years, we've done a virtual auction and gala. It's gala to go when you actually pick up your food and you take it home, and you get to watch the live auction with Lou Dempsey, who's volunteered his time the last 2 years. You get to watch it from your house and partake in great food, and they have sponsored that for the last 2 years that we've offered it. It's called Beautiful Minds. It's typically in the late spring, right before the summer, so we haven't quite set a date. It's usually April or May. And then our first year, we did an Elevate Lives concert with Josh Wilson. And, Hardy quickly stepped up, because of Roseanne and her connection to our cause and supported us in our very first event. So we haven't done a concert since then, but we the auction and the virtual gala, people really love it. It's great because you don't have to get all dressed up. You can if you want to. We have some people send us pictures and they do get dressed up.
Get their sparkles on.
They get their sparkles on, but they have their slippers on. So their feet are comfy. Right. You know what I mean. Yeah.
Right.
Well, is it virtual because of the pandemic or always virtual?
So it was virtual because of the pandemic. From what I understand, we were the first nonprofit organization. I'm a little bit of a risk taker. That might have had something to do with me carrying a Glock around for a while. To go virtual with an event. And we just said, my husband and I had been using Zoom as YouTubers and podcasters, and I felt comfortable enough with the tool. I said, let's do it. And my board trusted me, fortunately, and it really worked for us. And we got a lot of great feedback. The first year, Ideal Meals did the food. And so you went and picked up the meal. You just warmed it up. And we're able to just, like I said, sit down and make bids in the chat feature. And then we also had a silent auction that the first year we did it on a Facebook platform. The second year we used 32 auctions. And so we've been able to just kind of learn as we grow. And it's been a great event. And I think we'll probably continue to do it virtually just because they've enjoyed it. It's like a non-event event, you know?
Right.
Well,
right.
So many people we're adjusting to the pandemic where we've now understood virtual works. Yes. So there'll be hybrid moving forward. There'll be an in-person and a virtual option on things. And if there is a blessing, for lack of a better word, we've navigated so well that now we might have discovered things. Like I remember we've had people who do restaurants on the show that did not have a drive-through. Mm-hmm. They created a drive-through because of the pandemic, and their drive-through did gangbusters. They're keeping the drive-through.
Yes. Right, right. Our Hardy Realty meetings for a long time were just Zoom, and now we'll always keep both. Mm-hmm. And our attendance is better. If you can gather a few more people, by being virtual, it's worked well for us.
Well, go ahead.
That's the same thing that we've discovered with nonprofit services. So we are human services, direct service to individuals. Our numbers for attendance more than doubled when we did a hybrid. So COVID forced us to look at services different. So if our goal is to end isolation, if I can be in your home on your device on a day where you are so afraid, like literally your anxiety has you in a place that you just can't leave, you're just gripped with fear, you can see a familiar face and connect that way and still receive services from Elevation House. So we have continued our hybrid services since COVID hit, and I don't see that that's going away for us. And that's kind of across the country. That's what clubhouses are seeing it. We call it our virtual clubhouse program. And we are actually right now just in virtual mode since COVID has spiked to protect our health of our members. But I think we will continue to use it. It has brought a lot of learning. It's brought a lot of heartache as well. But,
sure. Yeah.
I always tell my children and people that I counsel with, eat the chicken, spit out the bones. So we're going to...
Nice. I'm going to use that.
Please, you can
today.
I've heard of a lot of country expressions. But I've never heard that one.
I'm from the big city. I don't even know where that came from.
How many people do you serve at Elevation House?
So we have 70 members at the end of 2021.
So you call them members?
We do call them members because they're fully invested. So Elevation House is intentionally understaffed so that members who attend Elevation House in person have meaningful work to do. They work in any and every area of the nonprofit. From our marketing, which if you go on our social media, I'd say it's pretty good for a nonprofit, from marketing, digital arts, to helping out with accounting, administrative, donor services to donors, our donor database. There's nothing that's off limits. If a member wants to learn a skill, we walk alongside of them until they learn it and can do it on their own, or we continue to walk alongside of it as long as they volunteer and want to participate in it. So we take care of our facility. We cook 2 warm meals a day that are healthy. We just do a myriad of things that mirror the normal work day. We believe that it's in work or purpose, meaningful purpose, that people find wellness.
Where is the facility?
So our facility is at the KAB Center, or the Kelsey Acock Burrell Center, off of MLK. We share it with 9 other organizations that are mostly fraternal or civil and civic in nature. For example, NAACP, 100 Black Men. So we're the only ones that are there pretty much on a daily basis in the facility, but we provide a service to them by, keeping the building up. We also provide services that to any organization, for-profit or nonprofit, that might have something that they wanted to outsource. Again, that's meaningful work. For example, right now we are doing all of the kindergarten books for Floyd County schools for the whole system. So we are folding all of them and stapling them so that the teachers don't have to do them at home. So,
That's fantastic. Takes something off the teachers, right?
Yes. And so we take
Right.
that Hardy Realty stance. The Bible mentions the word serve probably 800 times and lead only about 6 times. And so for people who live with mental illness, many times they have felt disconnected from society. And so we give them a meaningful place to plug in so that they can say, you know what, I folded every book that some kindergartner is going to read. One of our members mentioned a couple of weeks ago, I might be folding books that a future president of the United States is going to read.
Oh, I love that.
And I was like, wow. So it's that giving back.
I'm curious, how do your members come to you?
Yes. So
And are physicians involved? Do they come not medicated yet? Some, probably a bunch of ways, but explain that to me.
Yeah, a number of different ways. You're absolutely right. There are a lot of different avenues. Some are referred directly by medical mental health services. So let me just clarify. We don't take the place of medical mental health. In fact, we know that that's a significant component of mental health recovery that is required of our members. So they have to be 100% invested in themselves. So they have to continue to see their physician and follow out the regimen, whether it's medication and or counseling and other therapeutic resources that they're referred out to. So we help support that. We don't do the medical mental health. We just support them in the everyday living. So they come to us through other organizations like Community Kitchen may call and say, hey, I have an individual here who's eating lunch that really could need some support. So instead of them having to walk through our doors for the first time, I can go and walk through another door for the first time. So it could be Salvation Army, Community Kitchen, Living Proof Recovery. It could be a church that has a member or a family. Again, because there's stigma associated, sometimes people are afraid to reach out, and sometimes they don't even know where to go. One of the things about mental health services is that they are few and far between. I've currently gone back to school so that I can be a part of that solution because we just don't have enough therapists, counselors, psychiatrists, psychologists. And so waiting lists can be months before someone can see medical mental health. So we help kind of hold them in the meantime and help connect them with these other resources that they need. So long story short, we get referrals from everywhere. Sometimes they're self-referrals. One of our greatest successes was actually a self-referral who saw a social media post that was consistently, and still is, 8:38 p.m. on Instagram and Facebook. It's called an elevated thought. It's just a positive quote for the day that we do a meditation in the morning about, that members can go back and watch a video on a private page to encourage them. And he saw those consistently over and over again. He reached out to us, connected with us. About a month later, his mom unexpectedly passed away, and we walked with him through that. He had not worked in more than a decade, had 17 hip surgeries, and was living with mental illness. He now works for Harbin Clinic.
Oh,
Full time.
Wow.
And it was just a confidence. Like within a year, literally.
Got his life back.
He got his life back. He got the confidence. I miss him so much because he was my right-hand administrative guy. He was my Excel spreadsheet, which Excel's like my love language. He helped us he was one of the first members to help us really get established with our systems and all of those sorts of things. And he took that and he took it to work in our community. And now he's making an investment in our community, and he's telling other people who are struggling. He said every day he talks to someone almost on staff who is struggling themselves with mental health or has a loved one who is. And that may not mean mental illness as diagnosed, but a mental health crisis or emergency. 1 in 5 individuals, sometime within the next 365 days, 1 in 5, will experience a mental health crisis. Those are our neighbors,
Wow.
our friends, people we grew up with, maybe even our own children. And COVID has exacerbated those statistics.
Sure. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, you in your answer there, you touched on something I wanted to circle back around with earlier. You were talking about being a deputy sheriff, and you went off on we got so many people incarcerated now that actually should not be there. They have had mental illness, but you kind of answered it. I was going to ask you, so what's the solution? Mm-hmm. So, because I can remember years ago, and this I'm getting into this a societal thing and a political thing that I don't really want to, but so many people seem to fall through the cracks now where they used to be able to get mental health, but you're saying there's a shortage of being able to provide those things now.
There is.
So is that the solution?
Yeah, there are not enough professionals in the mental health field. One of the best things that our community could do is find ways to entice, if you will, people who are in the medical mental health profession to come to our community and to support more grassroots and nonprofit organizations like the National Alliance of Mental Illness, which is run by Jim and Bonnie Moore, and Elevation House and other organizations that provide mental health supports as well. Because it really does take an entire community. This is it impacts every facet of their life.
Sure.
So we could do a better job of that. And even when you're talking about housing, having housing options, what are those things that attract people into our community, especially professionals like psychiatrists, doctors, counselors, those sorts of things? What can we do to incentivize them coming here to Rome and Floyd County? We need more professionals, and we just need more services in general. When I talk to someone and they tell me they've just gotten out of the hospital, and typically they're in the hospital for one or two reasons. They're either homicidal or they're suicidal. That's typically why they've been in a crisis stabilization unit. Now they've come back into the community trying to figure out, okay, how do I keep from getting back there? Where do I go?
What's my purpose?
Right. Mm-hmm. And so we help to guide them through that. But the things that they're accustomed to are the medical mental health. Those are the things we're more familiar with. Like, not contemporary, but standard traditional counseling services, one-on-one groups, those sorts of things. But when the wait for those things are months.
There we go.
Or if you need to have a medication adjustment, which you've just come out of the hospital, and even if you've been sick from a physical standpoint, sometimes your medications need to be adjusted. But if you can't see someone for 3-4 months, that's an issue. That's really an issue. And so there begins to be this cycle of hospitalizations, which, by the way, SAMHSA did an evaluation of the Clubhouse model, and we are considered the most effective form of mental health recovery that stops that cycle of rehospitalization. And in fact, not this year, but the previous year, we had 0 rehospitalizations, 0 and 0 incarcerations. Now, since COVID, we have seen hospitalizations increase, but people have had a safe place to land. And many of those rehospitalizations were because of addictive disorders, which are mental illnesses, but they were because of substance misuse. So people trying to use coping mechanisms to deal with, like we were talking about
self-medicating.
Before the podcast, just dealing with times that are unprecedented. How do we all deal with it? You see things in articles in the newspaper about people who are drinking more alcohol just to cope. It's impacting everyone. So we are going to see a greater demand for a field that is currently under professionalized. We don't have enough people in the career or in the profession of medical mental health.
Yeah, it's when you touched on that earlier, I'm glad you expanded on that because that's interesting to know. And I loved the success story. The gentleman that I'm sorry you lost your Excel spreadsheet person.
I know, me too. I'm very sorry. He at least got me set up. So,
but that's a great testament to the work you guys are doing. And so anyway, contact information. How can people get involved? How can people support social media? Things like that.
Absolutely. So the one-stop shopping is elevationhouse.org. You can find all of our social media at the top on the menu bar, but we're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. You can connect with us on all those ways. And if you just want to use old-fashioned telephone, you can call and or text at 706-413-2323.
And contact information for you, Lori, at Hardy Realty. Somebody wants to buy, sell a house.
I think the cell phone is is the devil, actually, but it works for realtors. So 706-766-7463 is my number.
And Carrie, do you guys need more financial support or volunteers? What do you need most?
Since our members do the meaningful work, volunteers, we can use them to help support members in academic endeavors, especially, or just to come in and be an additional hand. But we need financial support. We can do what hospitals do for about $2,500 a day. We can do it for $7. So we provide a safe place for someone to come for $7 a day where they're supported and safe, as opposed to a hospitalization that on average in our state costs $2,500 to hospitalize somebody for a mental illness.
Wow. Well, fantastic. Any final thoughts? Good to go? We left anything out?
Haven't we? I think we covered it all.
The power of 5.
Right.
5 children, 1 of 5.
You guys are nodding, and this is a podcast. I need you to.
That's right. That's right.
But
That's
you
right.
guys,
I'm a professional after today.
You put her on a podcast one time, and now she's like,
I want to make sure I'm not invited back, Roger. No offense.
Michelle Reichard walks in here. She probably gets upset every time I mention her when she's not here, and she's so sheepish and doesn't want to. She just wants to sit there quietly. And
she said, "I speak when I'm spoken to."
And then I'm like, "No, jump in, chime in." So Lori, you'll be invited back.
Okay, well, thank you.
We need to have like a superhero moms podcast show or something.
I like it.
Moms
I
of
like
5.
it. Who knows what this could have started?
You just started something.
Maybe.
Thanks, Roger.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for the great work you do in the community. We always thank Hardy Realty. You've been listening to the Hardy Realty Show as we broadcast from the Hardy Realty Studios. I'm Roger Manus with Rome Business Radio. Thank you so much for listening.